Let's talk about the Korean pronoun I, 저, difference of the Korean present simple tense, 2 pronunciation or sound changing rules, actually 3, and 1 irregular conjugation rule in this lesson. The Korean pronoun for I is 저 in honorifics. You can add a particle to express the exact role of this pronoun 저, but you don't have to do that for now. 저 alone can sound clear enough in many cases, but you must be able to add a particle sometime soon. Let's use the verbs you learned in the previous lesson and make short sentences. 저 가요, I go. 저 자요, I sleep. 저 먹어요, I eat. 저 뛰어요, I run. 저 좋아해요, I like. 저 수영해요, I swim. Non-honorific form of the pronoun I in Korean is 나. But as I said, you will not have a chance to use this. If you want to learn 반말, non-honorific form now, please ask your closest friend, date, or your partner who is Korean. We are not going to use 반말 until lesson 10. I don't want you to use the non-honorific form to anyone since honorifics is a huge part of the Korean language culture. Let's talk about the present simple tense a little bit more. In English, the principal use of the present simple is to refer to an action or an event that takes place habitually or to a temporary present state. That's exactly the same in Korean as well, so you basically use the present simple tense when you talk about something you do habitually, generally, usually, normally, or regularly. Further, amazingly, the present simple tense form in Korean can cover the present continuous tense and the future tense as well. Let me show you some examples. Let's use the sentence with the verb you are familiar with. To swim, 수영하다. If you use the subject I and the honorific suffix 요, 저 수영해요, I swim. Let's add an adverb or an adverbial phrase which can show the frequency of the action, the time, or the day. Let's see the first sentence together. 저 매일 수영해요. 저 매일 수영해요. 매일 means every day. So it's used to express that swimming is something you do every day, regularly. That's the use of the present simple tense that we already know. Let's see the next sentence. You'll be able to see the present simple tense in Korean can cover the present continuous tense and the future tense as well if you use it with the proper adverb or an adverbial phrase. 저 지금 수영해요. 저 지금 수영해요. 지금 means now. So 저 지금 수영해요 means I am swimming now, which is in the present continuous tense in English. Next sentence. 저 내일 수영해요. 저 내일 수영해요. 내일 means tomorrow. So 저 내일 수영해요 sounds like I am going to go swimming tomorrow, which indicates the future tense in English. Good thing about this is you can just use the present simple tense form when you don't remember how to use present continuous tense or future tense in Korean. And if you add a proper adverb like now or tomorrow, it will sound even clearer. Of course, there are endings which can put a predicate in the actual present continuous tense and the future tense in Korean, and you will learn them one by one very soon. Let's briefly talk about the order of words in Korean before we go to the next page. In fact, we don't have the fixed order of words in Korean. There are no rules for that. The main reason is because we have particles and endings which are used to indicate the exact role of that word or phrase in the sentence. Of course, there still are some orders we usually follow. For example, as you say cute dog in English, we say cute dog too in Korean. We don't really say dog cute. Maybe they do that in French. I don't know exactly. Please let us know if there are any learners who speak French, but as I said, we don't really do that. But I didn't say it's impossible in Korean. Usually modifiers or modifier phrase or clause comes before the word which is modified in Korean as well. If you don't know what it means, no worries, we'll learn about them later as well, probably in lesson 6. Let's see some examples. 가끔 수영해요 저. 가끔 means sometimes, so 가끔 수영해요 저. Sometimes swim I. Next sentence. 수영해요 저 가끔. Swim I sometimes. These two sentences don't sound awkward at all in Korean and deliver the meaning precisely without a problem. The previous sentences 저 매일 수영해요, 저 지금 수영해요, and 저 내일 수영해요. These sentences are in the usual order that people normally use. We'll talk about the order of words again one more time after you learn more words and grammatical elements. For now, you can just think that a verb or a predicate adjective like 수영해요 on this page prefers to come at the end of the sentence in Korean. And time-related adverbs like 매일, 지금, 내일 usually come right after the subject, 저. But that's not a rule at all. That's enough for now. Now, let's learn the actual present continuous tense form in Korean. You can basically think you add an ending to a stem to express the present continuous tense in Korean. Let's use the verb to walk. 걷다, 걷다. 걷 is the stem. In order to put the stem in the actual present continuous tense, you add 고 있다, 고 있다. There are two things you need to know. First, 고 있다 is comprised of two elements, 고 and 있다. Endings comprised of more than two elements are called compound expression or grammar expression precisely in the Korean grammar. But you can just call them endings. Who cares? You might wonder why this compound expression can put a predicate in the present continuous tense. I would say this ending or this compound expression 고 있다 is not a tense element, but it expresses that you took an action and that action continues. So 고 sound can be used like English and. 있다 basically means to exist or to stay still. So it can also be used to mean something keeps its position or keeps going on. Action starts and it keeps going on. So present continuous. Just think that way if it helps. This 있다 part is in the base form. So you need to add the ending 어요. So you can simply think you add 고 있어요 to the stem 걷, 걷고 있어요. Just remember the entire 고 있어요 for the present continuous tense. Stem plus 고 있어요. By the way, did you hear that this sounds 걷고 있어요 rather than 걷고 있어요? Let's learn about these pronunciation rules or sound changing rules in the next page. Let's make a simple sentence together. A asked, "What are you doing now?" B answered, "I am walking now." How would you make this sentence, I am walking now? I, 저, now, 지금, am walking, 걷고 있어요. 저 지금 걷고 있어요. Right? As you learned, in Korean, the present simple tense can cover the present continuous tense and the future tense as well. So you can use the present simple tense form as well here. I, 저, now, 지금, walk, 걸어요. 저 지금 걸어요. 저 지금 걸어요. Hold the phone. The stem 걷 plus 어요 becomes 걸어요. 걸어요. With the final 르 consonant. Where did this final 드 consonant go? Let's find out together. This is one of the irregular conjugations in Korean. You need to remember them one by one. But don't be scared. It's just like you need to remember regular conjugations in English as well. Like begin, began, begun, or go, went, gone. You will be so familiar with the correct sound as you study further that you will know something is not right when something doesn't sound right. Just like you can sense that beginned or becomed doesn't sound quite right in English. Now let's learn the sound changing rules from the ones that are more important than the rest. The most of the sound changing rules that I wanted to teach were introduced in my original lesson 7, but I think it is okay for you to learn about them a bit earlier. I didn't put them in the earlier lessons before because I didn't want to scare you away, and most importantly, I didn't think these were very important, but there have been a lot of learners who asked me about this, so why not? If you don't want to know, you can skip this part. I know some people will say it is not true that one Korean consonant makes only one sound because the sound changes depending on what's coming next. That's true. But what you've got to understand is these pronunciation or sound changing rules exist to help you pronounce those consonants easier actually. Let's learn this with that positive mindset. Let's use 걷고 있어요, am walking, which is in the actual present continuous tense. The first part, 걷고, is actually pronounced 걷고, 걷고, with a double g sound. Again, the second 고 sound turns into the 고 sound with a double consonant g. I call this Fortis, or double consonant rule. So basically, when the initial 그, 드, 브, 스, 즈 consonant is followed by the final 그, 드, or 브 consonant, it turns into the double consonant 그, 드, 브, 스, 즈 sound. Please don't be confused, only the sound changes. The spelling does not change. This is one of the sound changing rules, not irregular conjugation rule. Spelling does not change, but the sound changes when you read them. Now, why does this happen? There's a reason. It happens mainly because we don't finish the final sound in Korean, as you do in English. For example, when you pronounce a bag in English, you can make the final G sound at the end slightly like bag, no problem. But in Korean, when you pronounce this pek sound, you should stop the air coming out of your mouth like pek and shouldn't finish the final g sound at the end like bag. Bag. You cannot do that in Korean. Do you get it? So because of the fact that you stop the air in the middle, the next initial 그, 드, 브, 스, 즈 consonant turns into 그, 드, 브, 스, 즈 sound naturally. So do you think you can understand why 걷고 is easier for us to pronounce than 걷고? I hope it resonates with you as well. Now let's learn why 있어요 is pronounced 있어요. Before we get into this, you need to know one more rule, which is called the principle of 7 final sounds in Korean. All 14 consonants can be used as a final in Korean depending on the spelling. Sometimes some learners ask me why a certain final is used for a certain word. There is no answer to the question, it's just spelling. But in the Korean grammar, it is said that whichever consonant you use as a final, it would sound one of these 7 sounds. Let's not talk about the other consonants here. Let's talk only about the final d consonant. Even if you use one of these t, s, j, ch consonant as a final, you can basically think it would sound like the final d consonant in Korean. I recommend you should watch my lesson 2 if you don't understand what it means at all. Now, let's learn the most important sound changing rule, which is called sound linking rule. Yes, this is the most important rule in my opinion because this rule is applied first before other rules are applied. Yes, 2 or more sound changing rules can be applied to one word. Let's use 있어요 as an example here. As you see, the double s consonant is used as a final of the first it sound. In Hangul, the Korean writing system, always this initial round empty ion consonant takes the sound of the last letter of the final or just the final sound of the formal block. In other words, when the final sound meets this round empty ion consonant in the next block, the final sound moves up to the initial of the next block. This one makes good sense because ion consonant doesn't have any sound in it, so it naturally takes the sound of the final in the formal block. Let's try this together with this it or yo. There are consonants which are called double consonant, and there are consonants called consonant cluster in the Korean alphabet. Norris, you will learn about these later again, but you already know what double consonant is. Double consonants are the ones with two same consonant, like this double s consonant used in the it sound. On the other hand, consonant clusters consist of two different consonants. That's the difference. Anyway, some people regard double consonants as a one consonant rather than combination of two consonants. If you see this double consonant s consonant as one single consonant, you can move the whole s consonant up to the initial of the next block because the initial of the next block is the round empty ion consonant with no sound. That's exactly why it's pronounced 있어요, 있어요, rather than it/요. Are we happy with this? Okay, good. On the other hand, there are other people who think these double consonants are the combination of two same consonant. If you think this s consonant is the combination of two s consonant, then you can move the last one s consonant up to the initial of the next block. How does it look? It with a single s final and 서요. It 서요. It's not done yet. What did I tell you about the final s consonant based on the 7 final sound rule? Yes, it sounds d. You don't even have to turn this s consonant into d consonant in your head first because d, t, s, j, ch consonant sound exactly the same when they're used as a final anyway. Because you don't finish the final sound in Korean as I explained earlier. Anyway, because of this final d consonant, the Fortis rule that you've just learned is applied. Then the second 서 sound turns into the double 서 sound. So after all, it's pronounced 있어요, 있어요, 있어요. It doesn't matter which rule you apply. The first 있어요 and the second 있어요 sound almost same when you pronounce them faster in reality. It's just 있어요, 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 whatever the final is. As you've seen, the sound linking rule is applied first, and then 7 final sound rule is applied, and then the Fortis rule is applied. So you can think usually the sound linking rule is applied first. I say usually. I like the first rule better, but it would be nice for you to know the second rule as well because it will be more useful later. It's up to you. One more thing. These sound changing rules usually work within the same word. Usually doesn't jump the space between two words and affect the next word. I say usually doesn't. Now let's taste a little bit of one of the irregular conjugation rules here. The base form of the verb to walk in Korean is 걷다. The stem is 걷. If you add a present simple ending 어요, it's supposed to be 걷어요. But it's completely wrong. Strangely, the final d consonant turns into final l consonant and it becomes 걸어요. 걸어요. You've just learned the sound linking rule, so you know it's not pronounced 걸어요, but pronounced 걸어요. 걸어요, right? You can think that this very verb to walk, 걷다, conjugates irregularly whenever the stem meets the initial round empty ion consonant in the next block. Unfortunately, there is no y. You need to just memorize the verbs which conjugate irregularly. And there are many homonyms in Korean. You know the words that have the same sound but have the different meaning? There is a verb which means roll up or gather up in Korean, and the base form of it is also 걷다. It's exactly the same as to walk. And they are homonyms. This verb follows the regular conjugation rule. So if you add the ending 어요, it is just 걷어요, 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 not 걸어요. Irregular conjugation is not about the sound, but about the actual spelling. One of the good examples of the same irregular conjugation would be 듣다, 듣다, which means to listen or to hear. The stem is 듣. If you add the ending 어요, it's supposed to be 듣어요. But this is so wrong because this one conjugates irregularly as well. The same rule. When this final do consonant of the last letter of the stem meets the round empty iun consonant in the next block, the final do consonant turns into the final lu consonant. So it is not 듣어요, but it's 들어요, 들어요. Okay? So for now, please remember the fact that these two verbs 걷다, to walk, and 듣다, to listen, conjugate irregularly when it meets the round empty iun consonant in the next block. Okay, that's it for today. Let's learn how to use the past tense in the next video. See you next time.